What's good, fam? Welcome. Today we are starting what is our second video, but it's really our first video because the first one was an introduction, so like we wasn't really talking about anything, but this will be the first actual video where we really get into some stuff. Um, like I said, this is more than a moment, right? So more than a moment is these feelings and these moments that we have are going to last longer than a moment. The growth that's going to come from being uncomfortable is going to last you more than a moment, right? This is more than a moment. And with that being said, for this video, I really just want to dive into myself a little bit. I want to give you guys a little background onto me, more specifically, my testimony, how I came into my faith as a believer, and the things that had to happen, right? So, a lot of these things I haven't really even talked about with a lot of people, to be honest. So, as comfortable as I might look speaking about it, it is uncomfortable to talk about, right? Um, but we're committed to being uncomfortable, right? So, yeah, so I'll start off with my testimony and how I got into the faith. Uh, I'll try not to bounce around a lot. I can do that, I can just be like, hey, boom, 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 but nah. I'll try to stick to a timeline pattern, right? So I'll start off with my childhood, right? So growing up, I was, I went to church a lot. My family was Christian heavy. We went to a lot of Baptist churches. And while I don't have as much memories from my childhood going to church, it's more so like my early teens where I kind of remember being in church and just like, you know how kids are, man. They want to get out of church. They keep asking, yo, how much longer is pastor going to keep preaching? Like, and I'm sure like even us adults sometimes, be thinking like that too, even though we don't want to share that. But I just remember those moments of always wanting to leave, always wanting to go eat or just do anything else besides just sit down and, just listen because, I didn't really have the attention span for that. Like, a lot of kids probably wouldn't, right? I wasn't really as interested. It was kind of just a thing that I was forced into, right? But as my teen years started to continue on, those occurrences at church started to dwindle. As you start becoming a teenager, you start having more of a social life. You start going out more with your friends, doing this and all that. And at the time, I was going to church with my aunt mostly, but, I began to start hanging out with my friends more. She, began to have more busyness in her life. So as a result of that, the church attendances started decreasing over time, right? So I would say that 2021 is where things really opened up for me, right? So from like 2014 to 2021, I can't say that I had a relationship with Christ at all. Like, if somebody asked me if I believed in God, I would say for sure. I went to church growing up, blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't really I didn't really know anything else to believe. So I was cool with accepting that. So I would say, as I started to grow into my adult years, like I said, in 2021, I'm 25 years old, by the way. So in 2021, I was 21. Uh, it was, I'm not going to share the exact friend that it was or even the exact moment because I think they'll know exactly what it was that happened. But I was riding with a friend one night. We were going to a basketball game, and I think we were just talking about stuff that we've been struggling with and going through, and some like recent accomplishments that we had in our life that we were excited to share and stuff. And I just remember, just being like, God is good. Like, I just did this last week, or, I finally moved up here, this and all of that. And I just remember being like, yo, like, God is good. And I'm not even really sure if I meant it at the time, but that just felt like the appropriate thing to say, right? And I remember he had said to me, as I was saying that, he was just like, yo, like, why do you keep giving credit to God? And he was like, why don't you take accountability for the things that you did and the work that you put in and this and that? And I remember sitting there just thinking, and then he was just going on rambling, just talking about how, like, we keep giving credit to other people for certain things, and why not give the credit to ourselves? Like, and I just remember sitting there thinking, and I was like, in my head at the time, I was like, yo, you might be right. Like, why don't I ever take, why am I never proud of the things that I do? Like, why do I always brush it off? Why do I always pass it on to somebody else's influence, right? And I would say that moment was what sparked in me. It sparked, I wasn't really concerned with religion or anything like that until that moment. And I would say after that moment, I started to really think about, like, what do I believe in? And it was because of that moment right there. Now, in that moment, I'm just thinking, like, yo, this is fair game, it sounds good and all that. But in reality, as I look back into it, I look at that as like Satan trying to deter me from God and trying to keep God out of my life as much as possible. And from there, I started to be very curious. I was a very curious 21-year-old moving forward. And I just remember just like, I didn't really dive into anything else, like not even like, Muslim, Islam or just anything else. Like, but I just began questioning if God was real or not, right? And it was a long phase. It was a long phase of not knowing if he was there. I got family around me that's always, praying, and, we're going to church here and there and stuff like that. But that connection wasn't hitting for me. It wasn't doing anything for me. And as I started getting more curious and curious, I just kept being led astray. I felt like the more I kept thinking about it, the more I couldn't come to an answer. I couldn't come to, a formula of how this works, right? And a lot of people can really relate to that. I feel like a lot of times that happens to people. It takes that one conversation or that one experience in their life where they start to question a lot. And if they don't hear from God in that moment, it can really discourage somebody that's, immature in the faith or new to the faith, right? So over the couple years, I didn't really pay it no mind and stuff like that. But where everything really started in my journey, where how I came into Christ, was it started in 2024. 2024 was a crazy year for not just me, but for a lot of people. Like, I feel like COVID still had a huge impact, just recovering from then, and just like, I don't know, I feel like, I felt like I was suffering a lot, but I felt like a lot of my friends and everybody was suffering a lot too, which was crazy. So I look at it as this, like, God put me through a 3-step phase in order for me to come into him. And it's not like I couldn't come to him in the first phase, but what I'm saying is he had to break me down, because I was very hard-headed, very hard-hearted too. And I didn't know how to come to him. I didn't know how to have intimacy. I didn't know how to share intimacy with the Lord or even other men in general, So God had to break me down. And, I'm so grateful and I'm so humble because he saved me from just a lot. But I'll tell you about the 3-step breakdown that he had to break me down. So the first thing that started was back in 2023. I was working. I was a corrections officer at a local county near me, and 2023 was my best year up until that date. I stepped into that career. I started making adult money, right? So it was a good year for me. I was taking vacations. I was, you know, healing the kid in me. I was buying every pair of shoes I wanted, all the different clothes, anything I wanted, I was getting it, right? And I was just spending, just crazy, like very impulsive, just not caring about anything, right? Just about the things that I wanted. And that was a good year, I guess, for me. And but at the same time, I did not like that job at all. I hated being a corrections officer, and I know hate is a very strong word. I don't even really like saying that. More so dislike, but I did not like being a corrections officer. But I kept staying around for the money, and I learned that that is a path that a lot of people take when they get caught up in these jobs that that pay them a decent amount of money. Like, it's hard to break away from that, right? You got bills, you got this to take care of, you got this to take care of, blah blah blah, right? So because I didn't like the job as much, I did not take it as serious. I was calling out of work a lot, calling in sick, not even really being sick, just avoiding work, because I did not want to come to work. Like, I was generally not happy coming into work. I was depressed every single morning, struggling to get up out of bed, and then having to go into work and work these long 12 to 16 hour shifts inside of a jail where you got no phone, barely any sunlight, like all these type of things. So like wrestling with these emotions every single morning just like used to suck, man. Like, it did, bro. It really did. Like, so I started calling out of work a lot. And, there's an attendance policy, obviously, for every job. And I knew what our attendance policy was. And I knew every single time that I was calling out, I was getting closer to that mark where, like, yo, at the end of my probationary period, like, I might not be here. Like, they might have to let me go. And in the back of my head, I knew that, right? But I wasn't mature enough to still fight those battles in the morning and still make it to work, because one half of me is like, bro, I need to get out of this job. I hate this job. I can't do it. And I was purposely like trying to get myself fired, to an extent. And then like the other half of me is just like, man, like, you got to stick it in. Like, you have responsibility. Like, take this job seriously. Move on like an adult. You're an adult now. You have responsibilities. You got to, move as such, right? So I ended up doing that, and our probationary period is 1 year at a time. You got 1 year to, I guess, to prove yourself or whatever, blah, 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 whatever. And it was the very beginning of 2024, and I knew that day was coming, kind of. So I had people at my job, higher ups, asking me, how did I feel about the job? Did I actually want to be there? Boom, boom, boom. And I lied at the time. Like, I was like, yeah, I want to be here, blah, blah, blah. Like, I love it. I could build here. But really, it was just, fear over losing that money and fear of having to figure out something new again. But honestly, like, I was led to think that, like, I was getting another chance. Like, that I would make it through that 1 year mark, and I would have a chance, just to prove myself. But I had to be on point. I had to show up to work. And I remember one day in the beginning of 2024, I walked in and nope, they decided to let me go. Like 30 minutes after I came into work, they decided, like, hey, like, we just don't think you want to be here, blah, blah, blah. And, it's that time. So I handed in all my uniforms and everything, and I had to leave, right? So that was like, that was pretty hard for me at that time. I didn't know how to share this with my family. At the time, I was living, my mom and my brothers were living with me. My mom and dad weren't together. That's a whole nother situation, whatever. But they weren't together, so I didn't know how to come home and be like, hey, like, I messed up. Like, I don't have a job now. There's no income coming in. I don't know what to do. So all these things are raveling through my head, and, I I kind of started to shut down. That's like a tendency that I've always had, that I used to have a lot. Like when things started getting hard, I would shut down. Um, and yeah, so that was like the first part of the breakdown for me. That first pillar of breaking down. Losing my job and kind of being like reset with nothing. Um, so that was the first part, right? So literally 1 week after that, um, I found out that I was being evicted from where I was living at the time. Um, there's a whole lot that went into that, but basically, like, it was just a lot of legal stuff that had nothing to do with me. It more so had everything to do with my landlord and the stuff that he was doing, because I rented from a private landlord. So doing that, I'm thinking that everything was okay. I'm a young 21-year-old that don't really know about anything. I just needed somewhere to live, right? So there was a lot of legal stuff behind doors that I didn't know about that, he was doing that wasn't allowed. So it was the state that had required that I had to be evicted from the house. And then once I found out that, that we had to be out in like a month or two, it was just like, bruh, are you serious right now? Like, just last week, I just lost my job, my career job. And now this week, I'm being told that, me and my family have to be evicted. So as you can imagine, like, that was very heavy, very, very, very heavy on me. Just as a human and, just as a man as well, as a man, we want to provide, we want to make sure that things are okay a lot. And in that moment, I started to feel like stuff was crumbling, like, and I didn't really have an answer to what was going on. I didn't even really have money to get a lawyer, to go to court, to do anything. I ended up showing up to court by myself. I had no lawyer. I went in there, I wasn't even, I didn't have a relationship with God at this time, but, just me and the Lord, right? Just going in there and just trying to work something, really just at 21 years old, not even knowing what to do, what to expect, but didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't know anything, and I didn't really have a support system at that time too. So I really just went in there thinking that, hey, maybe I could save me and my family from something. Didn't work out like that. Ended up having to be evicted within 30 days after that. So ended up getting evicted a month later. Family split apart. A lot of things happened in between that. That's a different story for another time, right? But that was the second part. So I ended up, having my own apartment, with roommates, with my friends at the time. And, I was doing Uber, still trying to look for a job because the job market was terrible at this time. This was like towards the middle of 2024. The job market was insanely terrible. If anybody knows that, it was terrible. So I was doing Uber for a while, and I was making decent money, but it just wasn't adding up. Like paying for the gas and just everything, car maintenance, everything that came out of pocket with that. Like I was being drained, bro. Like having to work 7 days a week, like all day, all night, driving, meeting different personalities all day. It was draining, bro. But I had to stick with it because I finally had like another place that I was, renting with my friends and stuff, and I had bills to pay, obviously. So this is where the third step, the third pillar of the breakdown happened. So, like I said, the first time, he took my job away from me. I still did not turn to him. I still did not run to him. I ran away from him. I tried to figure out everything on my own, right? So he's like, okay, like, let's break you down again, right? Let's break you down and see if you come to me now. Evicted, got the eviction from the crib, and I did everything but turn to him. I ran everywhere else. I ran to weed. I ran to liquor. I ran to, I just ran to everything except him. And, he's like looking at me like, hey, like, God is like, hey, like, you still, you didn't get the message yet? Like, you still not coming home, man? Like, so, nope, me being hard-headed and me trying to figure out everything on my own. He's like, all right, bet. Boom. Second breakdown. Had to keep breaking me down. I'm still not coming, right? So This is the third pillar. I was Ubering and my car ended up getting towed away at the time. I forget what happened. I guess I was parked illegally. I don't know, but my car ended up getting towed, and I was so broke. Like, I literally had probably like $20 to my name. I had less than a quarter of gas in the tank. I didn't even know what to do. I had no food, no nothing. Like, and I had to Uber like every day cause you could take out your money from Uber every day. So I was trying to Uber a little bit so I can get the money, put the money in my gas tank, then do a couple more hours so I can buy food, and then do a couple more hours so I could have more money in the morning. Like, it was just a crazy, like, that type of living was just insane, but I was doing it though, right? I was doing it. So I ended up getting my car towed away, and I had absolutely no money to help out with, with getting it towed back or anything. So I didn't really have a lot of support at the time. My friends were kind of struggling just the same way as I was. My story was just a little bit different. And, every day, the car, to get the car out of the pound, just more and more money. And it's going on a week, then it's going on 2 weeks, then it's going on 3 weeks. I still don't have any money, no support, nobody to be like, hey, bro, like, I got you, I'll look you out. So I ended up like losing my car because I never had the money to go back and get it. And that was a really tough moment. So not working and not doing anything for a couple weeks, rent still due at the first of the month. So this was August 1st in 2024. Landlord coming looking for that rent from me. My friends got it, but I don't got it. So I'm trying to ask for more time and this and all that, but nah, they wasn't having it. They was not having it. I was told I had to be out immediately, kind of. And, if I would have knew the things I would have knew back then, it wouldn't have happened like that, because of squatters' rights and all that. And I also didn't have like an official lease either. But, my address was on my driver's license for there. But, she told me like, yo, you got to be out today. I didn't have no rent money, and, she I didn't have a job anymore, but she just wasn't playing that. So at that moment, I packed up all my stuff in one day, and I moved out back in one day, and I moved in with my mom. And at that moment, I had nothing to my name. I had negative dollars in my bank account. I had no car anymore. I had no job. I had just like gained 100 pounds, and that just from January of 2024 to like July, I gained almost 100 pounds. Like, from doing Uber, from being depressed, eating all day on the road, not working out, like just being stressed. I gained a lot of weight. So at this point, I didn't even have clothes that fit, bro. Like, I literally had like the same two shirts that I could wear that fit me. And I had nothing. Like, my shoes, I couldn't even fit none of my shoes anymore because my ankles got bigger. Like, just all this crazy stuff, right? So I moved back into my mom's house, and I'm just thinking like, yo, I have nothing. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't have no money, no car, no clothes. I have no food. I literally don't know what to do. And it was in that moment where I had my first real encounter with God. So to backtrack from that, I said I wouldn't backtrack, but I forgot a major part. So I started doing shrooms that summer of 2024, right? And a lot of people don't really know this, but I started doing shrooms, and when I started doing shrooms, it kind of opened my eyes to a lot, just in life. As you could probably hear from anybody that did shrooms. But I'm not saying that shrooms led me to God, because I'll never say that. But when I started doing shrooms, my mind started expanding, and I started being more curious about the Bible and curious about God. I was asking more questions. I was having more conversations with people about God that I wasn't having before. But I wasn't quite there yet. Like, I wasn't really in the Word. I wasn't doing anything yet. But I was open to the conversations more. Like, and I backtrack all that. I mean, I fast track all that to say that in that moment in August, when I was in the living room, and it was in the middle of the night. I'm sitting down on the chair, and I'm just reflecting, sitting back, reflecting on everything that just happened, just this whole year. I'm thinking about all the mistakes I made, everything that I did wrong, and I'm just like, yo, like, I don't know. I'm seeing the sin in me, right? I'm seeing like the immaturity in my decisions. Like, as much as I wanted to say I was grown and I was an adult, this and all that, I was really seeing where I was so immature at. And it's like I had a revelation. I started to understand everything from my childhood. I started to understand why I was doing the things that I was doing. And like in that moment, it was like, no lie, like I felt like everything in my body just dropped. Like I lost all strength in my body, and I'm sitting there crying, kind of. And in that moment, I just felt my body drop. And when I dropped, like I literally dropped out of the chair. Like I couldn't sit in the chair no more. Like I got literally pulled to the ground on my knees. And when I was on my knees, bro, I just kept saying, like, I just kept crying out to Jesus, like, Jesus, like, I love you. I understand. Like, I'm sorry. I'm saying I'm sorry 1,000 times. Like, and I'm just sitting there just like, I'm sorry, God. And that was like the first time I've ever really done something like that, like in my adult years at least. And in that moment, like, I just feel like this crazy sensation through my body. Like, I just feel like I'm being touched by God. Like, and he has his hand on my shoulder, and I'm just sitting there just crying, like tears all over the ground, like puddles of water. And like, it was like in that moment, like I finally, it's like I never had time to process anything ever in my life, because I was just constantly on the run and constantly running away from my issues and my problems and my emotions. And in that moment, I felt all of that in that moment, like, but it felt okay. Like, God made it okay for me. He wanted to let me know that it was all right, and my past does not define me. And I just was crying out to him, just explaining everything to him, like just showing him that I had an understanding of where he guided me. And in that moment, I realized the 3 pillars of the breakdown that he put me through. And I realized just how stubborn and hard-headed I was. But I realized what he was doing in that moment. And it was just like it was so just it was really peaceful at the same time. Like, I know I'm crying and all this, but I felt a sense of peace because I finally felt like I understood what he was doing to me. And I felt good. And he was just talking to me in that moment a lot. Like, and he finally gave me the strength to get up, and I was just up just praising him all night long. Like, it was just a crazy night for me. And that's kind of like how my journey to God came, was that moment right there. So from there on, I started getting into the Word. I was heavy into the Word. I started trying to read the Bible and just have a relationship with God. And, it went pretty good. It started off good from like August to December of 2024. I was really locked in with God. I was also unemployed though. I couldn't find a job for nothing. I had nothing going on in my life, but I had God, because I had nothing else, but I had God. And my reliance and my dependence on him was super, super strong. Like, there was nothing that could break me out from that. And it started off strong. And then in the beginning of 2025, I ended up getting a job, right? So, crazy story. During that 5-period month where I was unemployed, I applied to over 330 jobs. I didn't get one callback from any of those jobs. Not one single callback. Bro, in the beginning of January 2025, I got baptized. Hallelujah, God, thank you. I got baptized, and the day after I got baptized, I had 3 jobs call me. 3 jobs, and they all gave me interviews, and they all wanted to hire me. I ended up choosing one of the 3 jobs, but I was just like, yo, like in that moment, I'm just thinking like, yo, God is so good, like so great, like this is insane. Like I was thinking like, man, I should have got baptized earlier, blah blah blah. But yeah, so I ended up starting a new job after a 5-month hiatus, and it was just like the best feeling of my life. Like I felt like purpose was restored, faith was restored, hope was restored as well, because hope is an anchor for the soul, for real, for real. And when I started that job, stuff started to go down after that. So as you can imagine, when I started working, I started becoming more busier. So my time started to dwindle with the Lord, because I was new in my faith and I was very young in my faith. And my reliance and dependence wasn't the same on him when I started making money. I started relying on money to make me happy now. And I started depending on money to make me happy now, and the things that money can give me. Yeah, so each and every day, each and every week, I'm talking to him less and less and less. I'm praying to him less and less and less. I'm reading my word less and less and less. You know why? Because I got that money coming in, that money handling stuff, that money taking care of these things. So it was like, I look at it as it was a test. Like God provided me with these things, right? As a test. He wanted to test and see if my reliance and dependence would still be on him the same way as it was before. And it was all learning curve, because I didn't have that perspective like that back then, because I was still so young into the faith. And yeah, I fell off completely. I stopped listening to conviction, and I just started to steer away. And basically the whole last year, 2025, like I really spent a lot of time away from God. I did. And it was hard. It was hard. Because the whole time I'm running away from him, like I know it, and I'm still doing it. And I know that my life was better when I had him in it rather than not having him in it. And I would wonder, why am I still running away? Because it's hard. Because that path is very narrow. Yep, it is. When you walk that narrow path, things get tough, bro. And I didn't really... It's funny because before I got baptized, I used to be like, man, I know when I get baptized, like, I'm declaring war with Satan, right? Like, Satan, he's going to try and tear me down and bring me down now. And I thought I was prepared for that, but I really wasn't. And I didn't understand that battle and that journey until later on last year, of what was actually happening and how Satan was, he was attacking me, because, I declared war. I made my commitment to Christ. And it's crazy, because I didn't have any mentors or anything. I didn't have anybody to give me those type of perspectives on that. And it could be hard when you're in the walk alone. I have friends that that were Christians and stuff like that, but relationships started to dwindle and stuff. I don't know, but yeah, it was a long year without God, I'll tell you that. 2025 was a very long year without God. And it was even longer because it was without God, right? But standing here today in February of 2026, I came back to Christ last month. Kind of like, I know it was like in God's timing, but it kind of felt unexpectedly. Like, I didn't plan to come back. Like, I felt that need, man. Like, I need a savior, bro. Like, I'm not better than anything or anybody. I don't have enough strength on my shoulders to carry all this load. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't deal with this every day. I just can't do it. Um, so I started locking back in with God, and this is like the strongest that I've ever been, because I had another year to learn from loss and rejection and pain and what all that felt like without actually following, without being obedient to God, right? And so my perspective this year around was just like completely different, because I went through that, and I learned a lot from those experiences. And I tell you, like, life is so much more peaceful and easier when you got God in it than when you don't have it. Um, and that's a fact, bro. Like, I don't care what anybody else says or tells you, like, it's a fact. And when you really see who you are, your identity in Christ when you're with Him compared to when you're not, it's night and day, bro. It's night and day. And I'm so grateful that I came back to Him, and he welcomed me with open arms like He would anybody. And my faith is super strong. And I get it. There's times that you're gonna go through your journey where you're up and down, or you don't feel like that you're on fire for the Lord, and that's okay, because we don't always have to be on fire, right? That's where obedience comes in. That's where discipline and consistency comes in, right? Because there's gonna be moments in your journey where you're gonna be tested. Your faith is going to be tested. Either if you're going through a season where you're praying and you feel like you're not being heard, that's a test. That's a test on your faith to see if you're still going to be locked in and committed. It could also be maybe because you were given an assignment as well that you were not obedient to and that you did not respond to. But I'm just, like I said, it's very joyful being in the presence of the Lord. And I really pray for that for all my friends, like a lot, my family, just everybody, even, the unbelievers as well. Like, it's just, it's just different, bro. Like, it's not really hard to explain, but it's just like, like, when you really know, like, I'm such a different man than I was even just a year ago, even 6 months ago, like, and even a month ago. And people be like, it's just a season, it's just something temporary, like, and that's okay. That's okay for you to say, but God is great, and He's done extreme work in my life. Like, He's saved me from so much darkness and just things that, if I didn't have Him by the side, I don't really know, where things could have went. I really don't. But that's kind of like my journey into my faith. I know this is kind of a long video. I'm not really sure, because, like I said, this is an opportunity for me to talk. I'm always a listener. So I just wanted to share my testimony with God and how He had to break me down to build me up, right? And that's kind of where I'm at today. And so that kind of like is an introduction to this channel. It's just about exploring, the faith more, diving deeper into, the emotions of it, just in the things that I've dealt with in my life that has ultimately led me to where I'm at right now, in my walk and even outside of my walk. So I know this is a long video. If you did stick around for this long to watch this, you're a real one, and I really do appreciate you, seriously. I hope that we can learn and continue to grow from each other. If you feel like you related to this video in any sort of way, with your walk in life or with your walk in Christ, like, feel free to, comment, subscribe, like, share a story, share a testimony as well. I would love to hear something from anybody. I know this is just the beginning stages. This video might not even get one of you, to be honest, but that's okay, because this is really like mental jujitsu for me as well. Just learning, just throwing stuff out there, just getting prepared. This is all just like practice for me, right? I'm just putting my practice on full display. But I thank you guys for listening, seriously. And, look forward to more videos. I will be dropping another video tomorrow. And, we're going to keep diving into things. We're going to keep getting deeper into emotions and, certain testimonies and stuff. But, this is just me declaring that, I'm not afraid to speak about my life. And I'm not afraid to be judged by friends or family. This is just my story. And I thank you guys for listening and being a part of it. So, like we say, show more love and less hate. And I thank you all. And I'll see you guys back with another video tomorrow. Peace.